Hey guys, it's Wayne with W. Scully CPAPC focused on fixing America's tax problems. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about tax preparer fraud. So back in 2019, apparently tax preparer fraud made the IRS's 2019 dirty dozen list of tax scams. So I just want to kind of put this out there. It is filing season. Everyone's trying to find a preparer, or maybe they have an existing one they've been using for a while. I just want to put some information out there so you'll be aware and be more cognizant of who you work with. Okay, so here are a couple of pointers I wanted to give you. So first of all, look for a tax preparer that's available all year round. All right, so that's very important, right? You don't want a place that's going to be here today and gone tomorrow. You have a question, an issue, or concern with your return, you can't talk to them about it. So that's really key. Find someone that's available all year round. Okay, and then ask for the preparer. Ask if they have a PTIN, preparer tax ID number. You need that to prepare returns and send them to the IRS. So you definitely want to make sure that they have a PTIN, okay? Prepare tax ID number. And then inquire about the taxpayer's professional credentials, right? So anyone can prepare a return. Really, there's really no barrier to entry except for having the PTIN, of course. And you want to, ideally, depending on how complex your return is to prepare, you want to find the right person that's going to do that for you. That may be an attorney, it may be a CPA, it may be an enrolled agent. However, it shouldn't. The person should have the requisite skill and knowledge to do your return due justice. Okay, so always remember, get a ideally get a credentialed professional. If not, again, it's going to really come down to how complex your return is. If it's a basic 1040 return with one W-2, maybe my son could do it, right? He's 19. He's it's essentially practically. I want to simplify it, but it's practically data entry. You still need to know the rules. You still need to know the code to some extent, but it's not um, anywhere close to someone who's high net worth, has several properties. It becomes more involved, right? So know your professional's credentials. Okay, check the qualifications. On the IRS website, you can go. There's a directory of federal tax return preparers. You can actually go there and check that person's credentials to make sure that they're literally or actually have a PTIN and they're authorized to file returns. So that's a place to go and check that. Okay, you can check the return preparer's credentials and select qualification. If the person's a CPA, if they present themselves to be a CPA or an attorney, an enrolled agent, and they prepare returns, they should be on that directory, and you'll be able to tell if they are credentialed. Okay, and their qualifications. All right. So check the preparer's history. Do a Google search maybe. Look for reviews. Look at the Better Business Bureau, see what what they've been up to. If anyone has had any complaints about them, you may want to know that as well. All right, that may give you a sense of how comfortable you are working with that person. So do that as well, and ask about fees. Ask about their fees. Their fee structure. I mean, I for when I use a range, it's really sometimes hard to say definitively what a fee is going to be, but I kind of know depending on the complexity of the work, I kind of know who I'll charge what, and for what. So it's really important to have that conversation up front. What are your fees? How do you structure your fees? Do you have a fee list? I think in New York State, you're required to, if you're not a credentialed preparer, and maybe if you are a credentialed preparer, the rule still applies, but you're required to post your fees. So that's in New York, and that may vary from state to state, okay? And then, I mean, I do an engagement letter where I talk about the fees, and usually we have a conversation about it up front. Sometimes, like I said, it's like a plumber coming to your house, right? They think it's going to be A, but it turns out to be A plus B. So sometimes it's not easy to identify the specific fee, but we do our best. But at least, again, you should have a conversation about that with that preparer. Make sure that they are authorized to e-file returns, right? The IRS requires, and some states I know for New York for one, if you're preparing 10 returns or more, you have to e-file. If you're a professional commercial preparer and you're preparing more than 10 returns, you have to e-file. And you get sanctioned for that. So ensure that they are preparing the returns and filing them electronically. And that does a couple of things. It cuts down the time it takes to process the return on the IRS's end. If you've ever tried to mail a return in, it takes a very long time. Okay, so you want to make sure they have the capability and the know-how with respect to e-filing those returns. Okay, so that's another thing to really consider. And then provide proper records. By this, I mean you have to, if you're a business, let's say you're a sole proprietor, you have a small business, especially those people, you need to have your bookkeeping ready and set to go by the end of the year so that when tax season rolls around, you're able to provide that information to the preparer so they can do a good job. It's much easier when the client or the taxpayer is prepared. Otherwise, we're scrambling. And by the way, there are higher fees, right? If I have to then go and do bookkeeping or some semblance of bookkeeping for you in pursuant of getting your return done, then I'm going to charge you more. It's just more time, more work. It's very tedious work. So you want to be prepared. You want to have somebody who's going to do your bookkeeping for you to get that done so you don't have to rely on the preparer to do that for you. Like I said, it helps down in the time to prepare the return. It cuts down your fees. There are a lot of benefits to that, right? So be wary of folks who don't ask for that information, who are gonna like make up information for you, right, and put it on your return. You don't want that either. You want it to be as accurate as possible, right? You remember you're signing the return on the pretty much on the penalty of perjury, so you want to make sure that return is correct. Understand representation rules, and what that means is basically some preparers have the ability to represent you before the IRS. Let's say you're being audited, or there's some other issue that comes up with respect to this return or a prior return. That person can represent you before the IRS, and that would be, again, as I mentioned before, your attorneys, your CPAs, and your EAs. They can do that work. Some of them don't specialize in that, but they have the requisite baseline authority to do so. Okay, granted to them by either the state or the federal government, right? In this case, the IRS. So make sure that that person can do it, because not all folks can do that. If you're just a person preparing returns, you cannot, or they are not allowed to represent you before the IRS. So because they'll need a power of attorney, and if they don't have that set up, they can't talk to the IRS on your behalf. The IRS will not give them any information. So make sure that's pretty set as well. Okay, and never sign a blank or incomplete tax return. Never ever sign an incomplete or blank tax return. I mean, you think this goes without saying, but it can happen, right? It can happen where someone is duped into doing that. It's totally inappropriate, and you should not sign. In fact, I mean, you wouldn't want to sign anything, put your name on any dotted line if you're going to be looking at a blank document or something like that. Right? It's not complete. You don't want to do that. Okay, so make sure the return is complete before you sign off on it. And then the other thing that goes kind of close to that is, make sure that the preparer signs the return. Right. Make sure that when he or she prepares the return, they're not doing it in like some third-party software and having you sign it as if it's self-prepared. You don't want to sign a return as a self-prepared as it being self-prepared if you didn't self-prepare the return. If that person prepared the return, they should sign it as the preparer. Okay, so that's another thing you want to be mindful of. Then again, review the tax return before signing. Obviously, review, make sure that the information on the return is accurate based on your representation to that person. You don't want to have different numbers that's not on your W-2. If your W-2 says $100,000, it should be $110,000 or something like that, or 90,000. It's going to throw an issue with the IRS. They're going to come back to you and say, hey, you underreported your income, and that's going to cause, have wide-reaching ramifications from underpayment of tax and not filing on time. So you want to make sure that's done as well. Make sure you review the return with the individual that's preparing it, and that is clear and accurate, and that your personal information is accurate as well. That's another big thing. I've had this happen before where the address changed, and the client didn't know that I had the old address on there. And although I sent a message saying, hey, you should review your return thoroughly, just for social security numbers, making sure those are correct, and making sure bank account information is correct. Obviously, you don't want to have your refund going to an account that's closed or someone else's account. That's going to be a problem. It's going to take many, many weeks or months to resolve that. So just make sure you double check that return before you sign off on it, okay? And then, last but not least, report abusive tax preparer practices, right? So there's a form 14157, again, form 14157, that you can complain about a tax preparer if you suspect that there's a fraud on your tax return. Because remember, you're signing the return, right? So you're ultimately responsible. And if you can, rightfully put that on to someone else, that blame off to someone else, that's what you ought to do. Okay. Don't be duped into, putting something fraudulent in your return and it'll come back to bite you. The money that you're getting a refund may look very good right now, but in the long run, it may come back to haunt you. Okay. So you don't want to do that. So that's form 14157. And just, fill that form out or have someone help you complete that form and lodge your complaint. Okay. So that's all I have for you today, guys. If you have any more questions, any concerns about what I've just said or anything else, need a tax advice or a tax repair, and you don't have one, feel free to give me a call. My name is Wayne, and I'm with the firm W. Scully CPA PC, focused on fixing America's tax problems. Our firm specializes in tax resolution matters, and we serve clients virtually. Make an appointment by visiting www.wscullycpa.com. That's www.wscullycpa.com. That's my website. And also you can call me toll free 855-254-1892. That's 855-254-1892. Please comment, share, like this video, and see you next time. Bye. This one is